Tonight's episode is, are things encoded in history where the knowledge is in the images that are left for us, is the question. Have they given us a preview of what's to come in these cycles that are coming and going? Because right now we see so many changes in civilization itself, like the entire world that we know is flipped and shifted. So I wanted to run through about maybe 45 images tonight, and let's take a look through history and see. There we go. Why is it coming through another channel there? There we go. Stop that. So what do we see in history is more the question. And can we get a glimpse of it? So I'm going to start off with a Merry Christmas and say thank you, for joining tonight. I had a little extra free time. I was up at my parents' house. We finished that. Came by today, and the guys from Meshcore came up, and we went to the top. Built some trails all around my property today. There were 4 of us. So just coming in feeling really good and energized from being outside as the weather was changing and things were flipping around. So let's go ahead and bring on the images here for you. I'm going to go into the small corner and I will see if I can just zoom that out a little bit as well for you here on the, no, maybe not. So as we look at Christmas, what do we really see with Christmas is the question. This one here is from the year 1699 or the year 1700. They can't really decide. It came out of a book that I was privy to get a snap out of. And this one is the history of the New Testament, or Vieux et du Nouveau Testament. Obviously French, from the year 1700. Now, what do you see? It's not really a crown coming out. It's more of the actual emanation of energy coming out of, well, the face of Christ there. And I am going to zoom that in if I can here. So what is the difference between having a crown and having the aura of the face come out to the point that it's overwhelmingly large enough to glow like you're seeing here? You can see the sunlight coming down. You can see the glow of the face. So for me, I'm wondering, is that a connected electrical field? Like the higher and brighter the sun goes, the higher and brighter that we also, with our electro fields, will connect into that increasing vibration. A consciousness, some people call it Christ consciousness. Is there a point where we're coming in another 2,000-year period? And we are then going to achieve or start to be embellished with a different frequency that is coming, is more the question. And also, as we're coming on to, I'm going to hit up the ad here as we're on the break coming up. We've all seen the headlines that talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots, but that is not what most people realize. These major analyses just come out and found that people who stop taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all weight back within 1 year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body starts fighting back. And that's all these things that happen with the stomach, and I encourage you to do your own research on that. This is why I like Biotruz, the GLP Elevate. Helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, without needles, prescriptions, with scary side effects. It promotes fullness, and that's the whole thing. Reduces hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. GLP-1 Elevate. For a limited time, you can grab a bottle of GLP Elevate for 40% off only at trimwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you receive 60-day satisfaction guarantee, free shipping. Trimwithadapt2030.com. And back to the show. Now, as we are moving along with the images here, I'm going to come back and let's move up to something that I noticed in stellar maps here. I'm going to make this wide so you can see it entirely you can see that pretty good. All right, so we have our solar maps. Now this one is 1661. And you can see the different times of the year. So winter, summer, and this is what they're looking at. As we see, the stars are always changing. Also, from our vantage point from Earth, during this time of the solstice, the 21st, we'll come to that shortest day of the year, Northern Hemisphere. It will appear in the sky that it stays static for a few days and then it will rise again on the 25th. Now, you have to ask yourself, with this being such an integral time with Christmas Eve, 25, like the sun's moving forward now again, starting every day from now, will get longer and longer by 1 minute approximately. Some days jump 2 minutes, depending on which month you're in, but most times it's about 1 minute per day. So think about just in context, that's more like an Easter reference. The sun dies on a day, it stays dead for 3 days, and then it rises and begins again. That is an Easter reference rate, but it's in Christmas time. And there's always been a lot of talk about months being in the different months than they are, that we are off by 2 months or so. Plus, there used to be a 13-month calendar. That would make us off by 3 months. So January, February, March, and then you come into April, and that's the actual Easter time right there. So that makes more of a sense for an Easter representation of going into the grave, coming out alive after 3 days, and then, So back to here. I don't even know how to say this Latin. Hame stellatum boreale antiquum, 1661. Cancer is a lobster. Cancer is a lobster. Do you see it? If you don't worry. A lot of people don't really follow the heavens as closely as they used to. And I'm not talking about astrology, which is, well, one of the sciences, believe it or not, back in the early 1700s, right when this map was stellar, star map, right around the year 1700, they diverged and divested the two what were combined sciences of astronomy and astrology both. Astronomy tells you your position in the heavens, like where you're triangulating at, where are you physically. The astrology was telling you where the energies were and how the energies was flowing. And, we're going to intersect. So you got a pot of energy, whatever it is, faster moving, slower moving, and our Earth and our solar system moves through this. They've been tracking this on 1,000-year time frames, though, which is interesting. Like they know when we move around through the different constellations, that there's energetic changes, because if you look dead center right there, I hope you can see the mouse on this one. I have to use my hand. Don't have a mouse. Plugged into camera. This what looks like a river here. That is a Birkeland current. And anywhere that you see, especially coming out of Pisces, these currents here, those are like dual Birkeland currents coming into what you would consider a star sign. Now, the Chinese also talk about the Beidou Qixing, which is the Big Dipper, that there's two Birkeland currents going in. And the way that they are powering into the center of the Big Dipper, obviously from our viewpoint, that is the seed point of consciousness of another Birkeland current that comes down and encapsulates our solar system. They actually talk about the Big Dipper being the seed point of human consciousness. It's called the Beidou Qixing, the cult of the Big Dipper. Got some Chinese stuff for you tonight as well. Bottom left, Cancer. Now, you, me, and everybody else knows Cancer as the crab, okay? This map is from 1661. They got the unicorn, obviously. Now, go with me here. There's a lot of things that have disappeared in history. Do we even know if these things are real or not real? Because the representation of most of them, although if you go back into the Greek eras of giants and gods, etc., most of them are what we consider twins, a dog, a bear, goats, were things we're familiar with on the planet here. And then there's a unicorn, although they do have dragons too. But again, were dragons real or not real? And then you look at this here and you say, well, what about, why is that? So I'll zoom that in for you again. Canis Minor, Canis Major, Gemini right down there for you. Orion there, coming off the eastern horizon, probably right around now, around 8:30, a little after sunset. Why is it that back in 1661, Cancer, as we know it today, the crab was represented as a lobster? Did they not see crabs back then? Were crabs like, wow, not anywhere to be seen? That's the question. I mean, why did it change? So if you wide out back again onto the hemisphere, what do we see? Cherubellums and different things. Scorpio, the scorpion, a scorpion's a scorpion. It's just wondering why these things have changed through history here in the last 400 years. And this is the southern view of it. See how the sky had moved? Okay, so it's on the, say, 7 o'clock position. And as we rotate seasons, notice what happens. It rotates also to the 5 o'clock position, hence the shortness of the days. It moves slightly. So they had already mapped it out that, you know, it moves this direction over the years. They've mapped out the stars, the energetics of what we consider the constellations over that long period of time. And this knowledge has been passed down. This might be 2,000-year-old knowledge or whatever it is that's been brought forward. But originally, all of this information about how long the great year is to move around is just to represent, this is just smaller cycles of the same thing. They're showing you the 2,000-year periods. They're not showing you the great year. But if you put those two together, you go, wow, they have the clock hands on this. We're just missing the explanation of what a clock is and showing you the inner workings of the cogs, right? So they already had wired this thing out a long time ago. So I'll bring you to the modern representation of what we see Cancer, the star sign. Why is it so different than now it's a crab? Gemini's the same, Leo's the same, Canis Minor is the same, Hydra's the same, well, dragon, snake, all the same. Just this one has changed. The reason? I don't know. That's the reason I'm bringing the information. If anybody has any information, blessings. All right, I'm going to run through a couple comments. Thanks for sticking with me here. This is awesome. Sass Fast Red, hey, what's going on? Great to hear you. Melody, hi. Checking in, all good in the hood. Poet, all right, goody. Now, evening all, did have a Merry Christmas. You know, I had one of the greatest Christmases I've had in a long time. It was just so festive, so happy. Everybody, usually they would be arguing or like the person that's just off a little bit, just being naughty, like causing the problems because they can. Everybody was not like that. Everybody was like in total harmony this year. It was the craziest thing. I really can honestly say it's like one of the first ones I've ever had like that. Generally, when you're just going to friends' houses, you're going to get that kind of cool vibe and it's just friends hanging out, dinner, you know, whatever you're doing. It was like that with my parents and my sister and brother-in-law and a few other people at the house. Amazed. I had a really good Christmas. I did. Silver 79.27. Unbelievable, yes, but actually in China, it already eclipsed 81.99. So what you're seeing, I heard 81.99 earlier today. So you're saying 79.27. In China, they're paying between $5 and $8 more on silver. See, they got us stuck here. Happy holidays. Problem is, our markets are closed, and the rest of Asia and the rest of the world's open, and they're trading silver and just driving the price up. And we are going to get like an $8 gap up on Monday or $5 gap. Like we're closed for our silver trading markets on the COMEX, etc. here in America. Like where that day of close was, there's going to be a gap in that opening price on that. Also, if you haven't seen, they've raised the premiums on all the traders holding contracts for silver for physical delivery. Like they said, you got to put up 20% more on every single contract. Well, people just didn't have that money. They're already leveraged out. So now they're saying you can close your contracts. Now, in the future, they're going to go to sell only like they did in the 1980s. So we're already seeing the beginning of the contagion. Last week, they raised premiums 10%. They just raised them again, 20%. That's a total of 30% raise on the premiums if you're going to hold long contracts on leverage in the COMEX right now. They just changed the rules overnight. It's like they didn't let anybody win or lose money. You got at like 3 a.m. You got to notice you need 20% more for your margin contract. Like what? It's 3 a.m. This is not even a business day. Something is broken in the markets, and I'll just leave it there. It's going to keep at least everybody I've watched. I mean, 100% of all people, and even the ones that I really know, and I've even had them on my show before, like, man, you need to hold on. This is going to rip your face off. The Bible's the book of the stars, Jesus being the sun. You know, I actually have a small book that talked about exactly that. Almost all the references you're seeing in the Bible are talking about stellar positions or some sort of energies contained within the movements around. And here's the interesting thing, at least these 2,000 years plus going back, and to say that the ram, Pisces, the fish, even the bull, you know, if you go further back, and even the lion, if you're looking back at Egypt. So at least we have about, you got lion, Taurus, or Leo and Taurus, excuse me. And then you got the RAM. Okay. And then we got that. So we're about that's about 10,000 years of time that we're understanding here. Almost a little bit more. Wait a second. What's that say? Hold on. Who said, yeah, triple digit silver is coming in. And also, as I've heard, it's an enormous amount of people, again, those ones that I very trust the most in talking about silver, they're talking 4-digit silver. Like, it's insane. Like, everybody went from being incredibly conservative over the last few weeks and months to being like, this man, this is going up to the moon and back. What is happening this weekend is a coup in the silver market. You're actually going to see things that you didn't think were possible for how fast things are going to go up in price for the metals. Now, I don't know how long behind the food will track along on that. Yeah, it's 400 to 1 paper, but it's actually the gold to silver ratio. If you're going to get it out of the ground currently today with the like limited mining supply we have. I was watching, who was I watching? Francis Hunt, who I've also had on my show twice or 3 times. Francis was saying you're going to be looking for about a 6.7 to 1 ratio. That's what they're mining out of the ground. 6.9, 6.7, somewhere there is the current mining ratio of really in the Earth's daily production, the amount of silver to the amount of gold they're getting out of the ground. Now, some of these areas were not profitable enough, so they closed them up. It's going to rip your face off. We're at 66 to 1 right now. If it goes down to 6 to 1, it'll be like a 10x increase in the price. But then also gold will be going up. So if the 10x of gold is going to be, so he's saying go sub double digit gold to silver ratio. I digress, but that's the whole reason we're here for this. What do we see in the iconography and in the imagery here? So this one, I put a 1661. You can see in the bottom right corner, this also map series here. I go to a bunch of old map sites all the time. And as you can see, the constellations are right in the front there of what I was just referencing. Cancer at the top, 1661, which still shows the crab, but you saw on the other stellar maps, it was showing a lobster. So, this is the point, I think, of transition. Right in the late 1600s, they moved from the lobster into the crab. I still don't know why. I just don't. But they got Leo the lion, and that would be more of a Sphinx type of thing if you're looking in that direction. And remember, we're going the opposite way around here. So how many signs are we into it? So each one of those that you see, each one of those gaps, like Leo, Cancer, Virgo, etc., Scorpio, Sagittarius going down, those are about 2,000 years of time, each one of those segments there. So as you loop around, they're showing you one great year here, just in a different format without telling you it's a great year. Because I think Copernicus got in a lot of trouble. I think they would have burned you alive had you given this information that every one of those say that's going to rotate. That is the clock you're looking at. You see how it even rotates around. Now, what was also interesting is there's another dimension or another factor that's included in that on the horizon there. But that was even so secretive, they did not include it in here. But it shows you where the meridians are and these sort of things. Now, again, that date is from 1661. But what I really wanted to mainly point your attention to is look at the southern pole. They already had Antarctica mapped out. Wasn't supposed to be like that until the 1800s, right? That's the whole thing I keep finding on these older maps too, is Antarctica's there an enormous amount of times. North Pole also with multiple land masses. I noticed those two things in all these older maps. But on our way to that, I found this cool image here when I was doing some research about rainfall in Afghanistan over the last 5,000 years. That is a Russian helicopter coming by the previously intact Buddhas without, remember the Taliban blew those up, remember? Not even going to go there with this. But that's such a apropos shot too. Like this Buddha standing had stayed the test of time through thousands and thousands and thousands of years of armies. And then the Taliban come in and blew it up. So, something has changed energetically as well. Like some force has taken over to the point where nothing is going to be allowed to be harmoniously with you. Like you do what you don't, you do what we want. It is all complete overwhelm and forceful taking, and nothing else except my beliefs will stand. It's almost like the Highlander right now. There shall be only one. There's no longer going to be a multitude. I even saw in India where they were beating, and breaking up Christmas celebrations and Christmas festival areas and just like totally destroying like you would see in other parts of the world. In India, no less, they're the most tolerant. Damn, dude, that is six more than six like religions that are classified. There's multiples up there too, and everybody was so harmonious, living well, except out in the West. Otherwise, together. And this is the whole thing here too. These had been here for a couple thousand years, and now, well, even though the Russian army had been there, we were there, America. We didn't blow that up. You know who? The Taliban blew that up. So anyway, I want to bring you back here into the Egyptian obelisk in Cleopatra's Needle, which you can't see, can you? The needle is too big. So this is from 1870, Metropolitan Museum of Art. They had a photo montage of Egypt, and I thought, that's pretty cool. Imagine just going to get a cup of tea, and then you rock up and you got the obelisk right here. And this is in the old town. Like, what's so interesting about it is everything from Egypt that we've seen is also, you get a pillar like that or an obelisk or something. It's like usually a massive temple complex everywhere, right? Like you just don't go and take photos around Egypt because every one of these obelisks is at a massive temple complex. But if we just step back into the 1870s, this is by itself. And you have to wonder how many of these have actually been moved out of their place up to the temples to make the perception of these only existed at the large temple complexes. This is by itself in the middle of nowhere. Now, if it was an electrical transmission tower or an electrical transmission device, you would want them further out. You would want to transmit the signal. So these make more sense for me as retransmission devices on a node somewhere out here by themselves in the countryside. And also another thing to notice, the watermark that's up that thing, it's probably about 15 feet up at the top of the house. You can see where it's more dark brown there. That for me looks like water had flooded through there and then receded. Not a great flood by any means, but a massive, like once in a 5,000 year flood or something came rolling through right there. Now, so interesting, they just built up around it. Like it became a wall itself. That's the wall of an interior of a home to like structurally, support it. Well, hell, I'd do the same thing. I borrow the obelisk, but I'm wondering what the energy is inside. Like if you're living in a house, like how much extra banging energy are you getting off this ancient relic that used to be an electrical transmission point? Like our high tension wires that we see and have around here in the modern world is the equivalent of that without the wires. So in 1,000 years, if our electrical transmission towers were still there, but the wires had fallen down, but you just had the structure, would people build under it? It's already a prefab kind of house anyway, isn't it? You already have the structure on it. And some of these questions in history need to be answered or asked even. So thank you for everybody joining tonight a little bit after the new year. I'm keeping an eye on the climates here or the images. Yeah, great year. Comments, 25,690 years. Yeah, 2160 times 12 or about 70 years per 1 degree, around that 360 degrees. Now, see, that makes sense. 365 for the day, but 360 degrees as they're measuring around objects, space itself, everything you're looking at, 360. But we have 365 for the calendar year, which is off about 5. It should mesh, right? Like if you're talking about cycles of a year that are repeatable, that have an exact number of days to it. And again, the calendar's been moved a couple of times. If there were 13 months, that would be very different as well. So you got all these different things that are like kind of laying up in here. Yeah, 12 houses, right? Egypt, or excuse me, in China, they're using horses and they're using dragons and different types of things, pigs. We don't have those. Same but different. They were measuring the clock in terms of 2,000 year periods through the heavens as well, because they understood that sea point from the Big Dipper. That's what they were all about, was the Beidou Qixing. That's why the Sphinx is two different animals. Yeah, you know what I'm wondering? Because I'll tell you my personal stories of having traveled over to Italy and Greece, Turkey. What I kept noticing was when an age would change, they would break the noses and faces and break all the statues and knock the heads off and everything, kind of like we've done in the last 10 years or so. When you come to an age change, everything from the previous one must be destroyed. Chinese did it. Everywhere across Europe did it. You could see the rise and falls, crushing of castles. They always did it. any kind of relics, ruins, got to be burned, melted down, started fresh with the new energies. The old doesn't remain and can't remain. So one thing I really noticed about all of that is every time you come into a noticeably different era, everything from the previous one was completely smashed and mashed to bits. China's very much the same. When you come in with a new dynasty, you burn everything to the ground and you start fresh. Well, again, is that a different energetic frequency and signature that they're following? Do the obelisks in cemeteries have a relevance? Yeah, I've always wondered that too. I'm just like, I don't have an answer, but I'd wonder that myself. If it works in certain settings, would it not work in other settings? And again, on the homes and the old mansions and all around these old, incredibly old buildings around that used to be these great cathedrals and things around in Europe, those were all stripped off either during World War I and II, or they removed all the copper that was across it. Sometimes you'll come across these old antennas that are still on the buildings across Europe if you're in the right place. But imagine that totally covered in metal. Not just covered in metal, but they molded either the copper gold or gold. There's some other names they gave for it, Heirloom or something like this. But that was actually molded into the shape of the actual objects that are in there, that you can see the design coming down the obelisk, that the metal was molded in there. Because if you're looking at a circuit board, it's not just straight flat. There's little notches and things. So this is a three-dimensional representation in stone of what you consider a circuit board. But if that was tightly clean, incredibly clean, and like very tight tolerance, and you hammered metal into there precisely and covered that thing with a sheet of thin, whatever their alloy was, and each of those objects had a different resonance, because when I'm looking at the front of it, I'm looking at a micro circuit board here. You're transmitting electricity at that point. I am sure all that has been stripped off over the ages. Guaranteed. I mean, how difficult would it be to take the metal off the front of it? It wouldn't be. And then you wait a couple hundred years and then boom, it looks like that. I was always wondering a lot of, some of these stone objects that are out in the rain, they disappear real quick. And I'm wondering, with that, is that only a couple hundred years of weathering because the aluminum, or not, I wouldn't even say aluminum, but just the alloy they had around it was the protective cover for the stone. But that alloy that they had was also weather resistant, but it covered these things for thousands of years, and somebody finally came by and deconstructed them. Is a kind of a random thing on a after Christmas day special here. This is the Temple of Augustus Caesar in Ankara, Turkey, Matson, 1935. I just want to make sure that we're zoomed in on this one here. Yeah, there you go. 1935. So it's not often you see this picture here. It's a first for me. And since this is 1935, it gives you an idea of the archaeology at that time. They were trying to either restore or hide, like 1935. So notice the larger blocks on the bottom, which would be, but for me, it looks like the ones on the right are newer than the ones on the left. And for sure, the blocking that is on the right is all brand new construction, aside from a little bit of that square at the bottom with all the indentations in it versus what you see on the left. Again, it all looks rebuilt to a point. But for me, that structure and construction on the right definitely looks newer than, and hell, the one just because of the shadowing could be also with the identical blocks across. If that's all new. I mean, for us, it's all bricks, but a little bit bigger. And I'm wondering what it would look like today. I haven't done that much research on it to see. And when you're talking about the Anunnaki and these sort of thing, princes of large size, gods of thousands of years, lifespans, relief of the banquet, Ashur Banipal, Nive, and this is 645 to 635 BCE. So we got to go back 2,600 years. 2,600 years. And what do we notice? Somebody who's much larger in the center there. Now, the servants below are obviously smaller than that. So this is a person of great stature. I mean, physically stature. And then, we've seen the stories of even smaller humans next to these giants that are, well, Anunnaki is the best term I can put for that. And also, when you're looking further back in, let's go to Anubis mummifying Orisis. or Osiris, excuse me, flanked by Horus and Thoth. Again, these are energetic signatures. And what is the similarities between Leo and what do we see? Another lion, don't we? So again, the similarities between times, they're showing us there's a cycle in time here. If it was encoded in the Egyptians, it's also encoded in the modern astrology and astronomy as well. Like this is meant to be there forever. And also passing through different realms. You know, when the realms is one thing, if you're, you know, stepping out of your body into a different dimension, but also the energies. I do believe what we're also looking at here is 4 energies that have shifted. Times of different frequencies that allowed for different things to happen. Something died of the old world and was replaced. So if you were going to look just like we were at the front of the star signs, right here, you're looking at 5. If you don't look at them as gods in the picture, you're looking at 5 of the same periods of time. And what do I mean by that? If I may jump right back here. So we see Cancer, Leo, Virgo. And then if you keep going around, then you'll have the Aries and Pisces, the fish and the ram, these sort of things. But as you come back around from behind there, then you start to see, what's that? Sagittarius and Scorpio. Those are their own characters in the story of timeline of 10,000 years here. Plus Antarctica showing in the 1660s, which it shouldn't be. But if you were to come around here, I'm looking at 5 characters of time, representations of each of 2,000 years plugged into the greater message. Why are they gods? And why are they? Because there's a larger cycle above that. So both of those are meshed together. But the information was encoded and only known by some of the priests. So it's a dual layer meaning of what you're seeing. Each one of those. So obviously they had just changed an age, because if Osiris is mummifying, the energetic signature for those 2,000 years encapsulated in that representation of those 2,000 years, whether it be marble statues of Greeks, further back in the Babylonians, what would it take its perception of? So if you had to, let's say Pisces, the year of the fish. Okay, so it takes a Christ consciousness. And the whole time, these 2,000 years has just been about the representation of fish coming out of different clay vessels and multiplying and feeding villages. Okay, that is the fish and this representation of that energy. Well, Osiris, what kind of representation of energy would it have in the whole cycle here? So I'm looking at 10,000 years of time, also equivalent. So if you were to match those together, you're just looking at 25,000 year time calendars demarcated by 2,000 year intervals, and they're just taking different representations, whether it be Egypt or whether it be Greece. So here's the interior of it. Again, like these photos, I hadn't seen these before, so it was all new for me. I'm like, damn, I really haven't seen this. And I even went to Egypt. This must not have been founded. They were not letting people in there at the time. And the snakes. Or would that be serpents? The Ouroboros, Hydra. You know, we start to see the same representation. I don't care where it is. But this was a close-up of going down in there. So at the very far end of the chamber, that's where that same image I showed you of Osiris on the bottom there. With the mummification, but going into the chamber, you see light. You see the sun on the left. Okay, so the changes in that current, the snake represents the Birkeland current that was known to the ancients at these energetic flows in space that are responsible for star formations. Like when you see a string of pearls of stars forming along a single chain, that's because electrically they're wrapping in and coalescing along that same chain. This is the same thing. We're looking at a chain coming out of the sun that affects the energetic pulse on this planet for 2,000 years at a time, tied to what is in the back. And as well, that globe map would tie it in too. Like when you start to look at this and go, all right, well, they understood quite a few things. So if they did understand quite a few things, then what did they leave us as clues for the past is the question. That's the whole thing. What is the known inside there. So I just showed you 2 cycles by 2 different cultures, thousands of years apart, marking and keeping that knowledge going for us. But why is more the question. And here we are in Egypt, 1864. Sphinx is pretty well covered up there, you know. That was like the thing they tried to change the face, messed it up. The symmetry is not there, and that's what was left. Apparently, a lot of tourists, you could climb anywhere. You could have gone up the piers, nobody cared. I'm going to bring you over to Sanxing Dui, which is in, I visited this place also as on my way up to Xi'an, which is where all these pyramids are. So Sanxing Dui, they had this culture pops in for like 1,200 years, fully evolved, boom. It was almost like the Sumerian tales, just fully evolved everything, writing, art, mathematics, laws, all boom, just right in there. They're there for 1,200 years, boom, they just disappear. Completely gone. They were there, they were gone. And this segment also kind of fits in with something that had occurred, 3,000 years earlier in Sumeria. So kind of take a look at some of the wild statues that they have here, like bulging eyes and this sort of thing. Or was that energy coming in? Could also be another question think about asking. And these faces too, they look very, you could almost say Tolmec-ish. Tolmec, not alien, Tolmec. So if you talk about that time, you're going back even 1,000 years before. So there seems to be this bring through of also from the Sumerians through the Olmecs and over into Sanxing Dui. And you have to wonder, where did it pop out of? And I climbed a fair few of these pyramids in China as well. Now, there's no ropes, gates. At least the time I was there, it's like 2006, 5. Like back then, it was really, when I say Wild West out in Xi'an, I really mean Wild West. Like there was no anybody up there. They were not this well maintained, and there was definitely not that much or that many people, and not that much like care given to it. It's like they re-terraced those, and it's sort of, I wouldn't say a fake one, but they really trimmed it up to make it very visible that it is a pyramid as a tourist attraction. And here's another one. Like those are rows of trees that are growing on the terraces as you look down. And if you go a wide view on Google Earth, go out near Xi'an or Shenyang, and you get, it looks like, circuit boards at certain times where there's 20 of these in a row. I was just talking about individual ones. Like this, for example, would be one that's just literally out in the middle of nowhere. Like I don't see any fences. I don't see anywhere for resting where people pull up. I don't see any big gates on it, like the big giant, wow, gate before you walk up to the pyramid. They're almost trying to mimic something out of, the Mayans or something in southern Mexico. But when you get to these ones that are way out there, like you can just climb on them and there's no museum right there. It's really, you see it way over there and you ask your motorbike driver, take me over there. And then you go, wow. Get up on there. These are the real ones you want to visit, not the ones that have all the gates and museums. And you want to find these where they're really remote. And also, let me check the comments again, please. I want to make sure I'm still broadcasting live here. Good morning from Western Australia. Yeah, man, it is. You're coming into summer. We're still in like super hot winter. I cannot believe it was 70 degrees these last 2 days in East Tennessee. Oh, right. Eternal life and resurrection, the upward pointing shape represents the soul's ascent to heaven or rebirth. I absolutely agree. Like there's so many layers of everything you're seeing here. It's not just about one representation of one thing in the either the stones or in the tapestries or in the myths, the legends, in the stars themselves. I mean, yeah, 364 days a year. I will stand corrected. It was 364, not 365. But why is it in the calendars 365 days is a complete year, not delving down into the minutes? See, our calendars don't do that. So right away, when you come up to the full day's finished, then that day's finished. That's 365 days. But wait, it actually ended many, many, many hours ago. And we still have to block it in as, okay, empty space. We'll just call it a day. So do that thousands of times. You're going back to where our calendars are way, way off. You got to think about that. What if it's 12 hours earlier? So every 2 years we come back a whole day or something like that. The granite box in the pyramid is only off by about 0.01 inch. I could even say centimeters as well. I actually went down into the pyramid. This is again like 1994, I think it was, in Egypt. We went up to Dahab up in Jordan, went out camping with the Bedouin people, man, super cool. Snorkeling all over the Red Sea down there. Cool coffee shops on the beach in Egypt at the time. This place called Dahab. Dynamite spot back then. But got to realize, all right, let's do the math. That's almost 30 years ago. But they would allow you to go to these sites. Like right now, they would all be fenced off and everything. I was going somewhere at that point there, but I lost it. So if they confiscate gold and silver to outlaw private ownership, silver skyrockets the price. How would you profit from it when at that point is illegal? Now you have to ask yourself too, had they done this in time further back? Because think about the mining. Okay, we got giant machines and all different kind of substrates. We're doing chemical processes and electroplating to harvest and thing, not just placer mining where you're picking things out or whatever, cracking rock and shaking it and looking for the gold after you're putting it through the sluice, nothing like that. That's all they really would have been able to do back at that point if we have the technology we are told. Because I've also read some accounts where they had something of technology, I don't have a name for it, but it would put out a resonant frequency to turn the entire rock substrate into I wouldn't say a liquid. It just separated all the atoms at the same time in a certain circumference. Every atom just went back to base state. So if it was like a carbon mixed with something else, it would nitrogen or whatever, and it would just and you would just have a nitrogen floating around a carbon. It was just like this soup of atoms, and then when they turned it off, everything would coalesce back in on itself, and all the atoms would come back, and that's where the veins would come from, as pure as you can get. And they had this technology that would liquefy. It's the best to like atomify the rock they were on that had gold and silver and what other veins they were looking for, tin, nickel, I don't know, cobalt. But when they hit it, every atom went back to its own base atom. And then, like I say, it turned into the veins after they turned off the machine, because all the atoms wrapped back in on themselves and came. And this is how they mined. So the stories go, we have finally found all the last time they did that. So all those gold veins and all that high purity, super easy to get to gold, that was the places they had on the maps that they had remembered that they did that last time. And that's where we mined first. Now, all this easy gold is gone. The gold we get now is incredibly difficult to get. They got to use super crap ton of earth. So it's just going to get more and more difficult to get gold out of the ground and silver. Will they confiscate it? I would say currently, no, because they've raised the margin prices right now to the point where they've knocked pretty much anybody who wants physical delivery that was speculating on it out of the COMEX. It's only big players, big banks left. Like no little players are left. They 30% up on requirements to hold your margin. No, they wiped everybody out on that. The next one will be, if it goes in order like it should, look for this in the news. They're only going to let these people with contracts sell. They will not allow anybody to buy a brand new contract going long on silver price up high. Now, once you hear that, you know absolutely this is a three-step process. The third, then, after they do that, everybody has to sell. So that means there'll be no more big takers of silver for investors. It'll only be the actual real manufacturers. That's it. Because they don't want to cause too much of a contagion. And if that does not work to its intended, because after another year, they're kind of back at zero again, or even under. They're going to confiscate all the silver in the SLV and these different funds, ETFs that have to hold the physical to issue the paper. They're going to go, there's a large stash of liquidity right there, huge amounts of silver. That's a one-time thing. Once they grab that, that's about a year's worth of supply globally, maybe a little less. But once they do that ultimate one move right there, that is absolutely finished. They're going to run the price up, so you want to loosen that from your hands voluntarily. Like, what do you think now? $200 silver. Like, damn, a lot of people are going to go. One want to go to 2,000, according to all these experts I'm watching. Going, wait a minute, they're watching something that they can't believe happened in front of their eyes. It's like a plasma petroglyph. It lands on the desk of the silver trader. You know, it's incredible what's happening. The Great Pyramid of Giza is located at the geographical center of all land masses on Earth. I've seen that too. So if there was a geophysical pole shift, not just geomagnetic, it would be the turn point. But then again, the wash, I've seen some stuff about like waves and wave erosion on the top, way higher up there too. So that must have been one mad wave that came around the planet. Even though it retained, like when it went, it still sent water sloshing everywhere. So if that's the case, then what you consider the mountains being, that's the safe spot. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's all over. Easter Island more around. The chance of walking from the pyramid and randomly crossing Easter Island be like, no, you can't walk. Unless the ocean levels were lower. Where's that one city that's up at 11,000 feet that used to be on the coast and it got uplifted 11,000 feet in the air? Is it Cusco? It might be. But anyway, these vast changes. So think about what a change that would be if land masses and water would move. You'd be able to actually walk to a place that was thousands of feet underwater before. Did anybody see a fireball over last night? Which place are they? Last night I saw a double crescent moon. Took a video of it. Then it looked like an orb of the hollow center. That is crazy. Yeah, there's all types of strange, unusual things that people are seeing here. All right, well, I want to go back onto this map because it is showing 4 land masses. Now, if you look at the 7 o'clock position, that is Greenland. So what is that coming off of there? And there's another island off of Greenland too. It shows like Greenland has cracked off versus what we see today, where that's covered in ice and it looks like one contiguous piece. But who would know that Greenland looked like that under the ice? That's like an Antarctic map where they have Antarctica ice free. Well, they have maps of Greenland ice free. Put those two together. Now you're starting to see the picture, and we got these land masses here. So that rock in the middle is the North Pole, but on Null School, you'll see where there's still a wind vortex around that. So I'm just saying, this is kind of a famous map. You've seen the land bits there. So I'm starting to look for all these different maps from different time periods that also show different land masses up there, not just the one that we have seen again and again and again and again. There are multiples, and I go to these old rare map sites and I look around for all these types of maps. So I'm trying to collate an enormous amount of these North Pole landmass maps right now. Because those of you talking about gold and silver, I cannot believe I have a slide for you. I picked this up. It's a magazine cover from the year 1900 exactly. For those of you who don't know, it was a bimetallic standard in America before. We used silver and gold both as money. Both. Now we only have, well, we don't, but at that time, 1913, the gold standard had been established before the Federal Reserve could establish itself. They couldn't have a dual monetary system. And when I say that, I mean true money, gold and silver. So this is, even back then, these artists saw that the manipulation, that's why they're pointing the finger, the manipulation of the government and the banksters at that time too, to drive one type of sound money underground and only allow gold to be used. And after that was accomplished, the year 1900 through 1905, suddenly then we get the banking crisis, 1908, and then JP Morgan and all these people forward from 1908 going out. Suddenly the Federal Reserve formed in 1913. But it was all predicated, and the number one thing that had to happen was this: gold there could only be one metal. They couldn't control two. There only could be one, the gold standard. And that is what this magazine cover is about. So look, and this is interesting. So you're asking how high is gold going to go? I'm just going to say, look at the magazine cover. It says 16-1. So last that I saw of the gold to silver ratio was 66. So if it goes to parity, just at today's price, like let's just say gold's at 4,500. I know it's over, but it's easier math. If we're at 66 and you come down to 16-1, that's going to be a 4 times, not exact, it's going to be about 4 times difference in the price. So leave gold at $4,500 and leave 16-1 as your price now. It'll be 4 times higher. So that would be just alone $280, just based on the 1900 magazine cover here. Some people are talking about 6-1. 7-1, that'd be a 10x increase. So the price right now, if it stayed at 1,500, which it won't, it's going to continue to go up, would be $450 an ounce. 6 to 1 is $450 an ounce. 16 to 1 is going to be 4 times this price here. So we'll call it 8 times $320 or 280, depending if you want to go 70 or 80 bucks. So there's part of your, I didn't even mean to do this. It was just, I found this cover and I was talking about gold. So being with the prices what they are, and I'm not a financial advisor. I just watch people and just talk about it on my channel. The whole plan for an enormous amount of these people is 20 or under. You start to transfer into gold. You start to transfer some back to fiat to get all of your debt taken care of and get completely clear of any new debt in the new system at all. And also take some of that out clear to punch into something that you also see moving into the next, like that once this monetary system changes, other things are going to go up in value and going to be wanted too. Like you'll have the capital to jump on that and get some of that too, whatever it is, that asset, as it's moving forward and becoming more and more valuable in the new post monetary system here of what we're using right now, or in the time of it. Sub 20 down to 6. So again, sub 20, you're looking at 4 times the price today. 6, you're looking at 10 times the price today. So that's just history itself. So why were we railroaded into that? Now, this is one of my favorite images here. This coal seam. This is one of the most perfect coal seams, but you know, living in Tennessee, there's a lot of coal mining here. And I've been asking other people like coal mining, and everybody knows somebody who either was doing something with copper mines or was doing something and knew some people in West Virginia that did coal also. Mining was huge out in the East Coast here. You know, before California in 1949, the biggest gold rush ever, North Carolina. That's what started the term gold rush was in North Carolina. And then everybody moved out west, 1849. So we're, you know, and then all the mining that was going on, the Civil War stopped most of that. And first peoples here like Cherokee, they knew they were coming in, armies and things. They buried their caves so nobody could find their stuff. Treasure that, because they'd been mining too. Like there were Cherokee gold mines and silver mines and different kind of metal mines here in East Tennessee. So that's what I'm saying. When you go back to the Anunnaki and different further back past, you know, even 2,500 years ago, the mining would be rudimentary. You're not going to get nearly the production levels as you would today. So at that point, when they said like 15 to 1, that would be about what they could get back then, because that's all the technology allowed them to do. But today, we can get closer to 6 to 1. Efficiency gain for sure. But that coal seam is really very interesting, the way it's so. And oh, I meant to say that. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about just coal, and they told me that the story was up in West Virginia. There was a coal seam that had folded over on itself. So like when they punched through this thing, they went into a cave, and the entire cave was lined with this stuff. There was not a single break. Once they punched in, imagine an entire cave covered in all that, this folded over coal seam. And it was one of the most precise ever and most pristine. Like, it's amazing. And I would encourage you to look up there. West Virginia. And as we come in, this is a rather well-known map. Don't have a date for you. I'd seen this in Venice in the museum as well. There's a lot of people that reference this map talking about the southern polar regions and also the North Pole, Tartaria, and a few other things. And I think that's upside down, is it? No, it's not. But what do you see there also? They're showing you the times of the day and night that are included in this. Now, again, looking through some different times, Babylonia or Babylon and Sumeria is one of my favorites. The fall of Babylon. And when I say Babylon, I'm not talking about this like in your mind Babylon. I'm talking about literally Babylon, where they came from Sumeria with a fully formed legal system, scientific understanding, writing system, engineering, mathematics, completely formed, and just like poof, they're there all of a sudden 7,000 years ago. Who came after that? Babylonians. That whole area, all there was desert, or excuse me, that's desert now, was forests and grasslands, and just rained every year there. Incredible. Savanna grasslands. All right, so this is 1569. So put the timestamp on it. Kind of renders it. I see an enormous amount of what you would consider those obelisks right there too. Like, look at it in a different format. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but that does not look like a cathedral spiral to me anymore. It looks like if it was also covered in metal, some sort of alloy, that it could transmit electricity or receive it. I'm looking at obelisks all across the city here. But again, when you're looking at this thing is falling, okay, is that some sort of plasma coming down from the sun that's burning this city? Rock doesn't burn like that. I'm just saying. Rock it melts, but it doesn't burn like that. So is this a representation of, not a micronova, but like an X45 or an X50 solar flare? Because there's a lot of depictions of some massive events that had happened about 2,000 years ago. Now, what if this was passed down as a story for 1,500 years? It's still a story passed down today, 2,000 years. So if Babylonia is destroyed, or Babylon's destroyed in terms of like thinking about it from a biblical standpoint, since we're talking about Christmas, the cherubim are up there. The Tower of Babel, is it really a Tower of Babel, or was it the number one communication device beside the pyramids? So the pyramids was, let's say, the largest electrical production, wireless transmission area on the planet in terms of its infrastructure. It's the largest one on the planet. Think about the largest hydroelectric dam in China, for example, Three Gorges Dam. It's the largest one. Okay, think about the pyramids as that. It's the largest one. Babylon maybe had the second largest infrastructure. You think they would be related since they were coming from each other. Pyramids had already been there thousands of years. They were not built in that 4,000 year period. They were already there. So if Babylon, and if this was wrapped in an alloy metal as well, think about that spiral. Then you're starting to get into Schauberger principles and vortex and vortices, spinning these energies up. Was that power plant was in Egypt? It connected it with this one. That vortice is going up out of the atmosphere to connect with something up in space to talk to. Maybe it was a transmission tower, literally and figuratively, for broadcasting into space to craft up there. Would you not want to destroy that if you thought that was the threat from you? They're talking to spaceships above us, man. We need to burn this place down so they can't communicate anymore. Hence, the language is being scrambled. Because that's what I'm seeing there. I'm seeing a power plant that's a very radio and very radio-esque, if you will. And if that is channeling upward, that is definitely communicating with a vessel somewhere. Maybe it's the aerial blimps and the Zeppelins that we're seeing. Maybe it's not in space. Maybe it's just in our own atmosphere, 15,000 feet up, 10,000 feet up. The blimps of the old, I don't know, history's murky, but whatever it is, that's showing you destruction of something. I'm saying it's plasma ripping off the sun on a super mega like 5580 X flare, something like this. Regional, as it was during the daylight hours, that actual plasma just ripped down and burned everything, including melted stone. Because if you go to Scotland and start there, all the way over into what's E.S.T today, you see melted buildings everywhere. So maybe that was the start point of this particular, they are showing you this particular plasma touching earth, melting stone event. It started in Scotland. That side, because we don't have this melted stuff across America too much. Comparatively, what Scotland's like in your face everywhere. It started there, burn pattern, and all the way around Babylon. That's only in the Middle East. So that would only be what, 3 hours of time on a rotation, 3 to 4 hours as the sun's moving. So if the sun was moving and they were in the daylight during that time, that plasma would have just burned them to a crisp and melted those buildings. So maybe that was the actual destruction. Maybe they had the communication devices still radio. These things are glinting and gleaming, covered in alloy metal sheeting. And then they get this massive solar flare that comes in and burns it all down. I mean, explain that in a storyline to me here, because here is the exact same image from a different artiste. But what's so interesting is, look how gargantuan the columns are there. My gosh. And these look at the trees there themselves, these flat, like Japanese sculpted trees, bonsais, but on mega scale. If you're looking at plasma released from the sun coming down and burning this is actually physical particles from the sun touching our planet, because like I say, it was just tremendous X flare, X100 maybe. What do you see there? The same exact thing. There's just some tremendous, tremendous event. And again, the prospect of it being a vortex sending energy upward, it would also, if it were energized before it got destroyed, maybe that's what it did to the weather. And those cloud patterns got, in that energized flow as well. After their tech broke, they couldn't control that anymore. But just the size to construct something like this it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we wouldn't even design a city with it. You'd be like, dude, that's gonna take 100 years to build that thing. No way. Just throw up some glass and aluminum, dude. The columns, and it's the same story. But see, this is the same story of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So I'm wondering, and this is 1840. So I'm wondering if the same artist didn't do this, and you're actually seeing an edge of the Gardens of Babylon as the Tower of Babel is being destroyed by superheated plasma coming down and touching the surface of our planet. And is that what we're looking at here? What are they telling us also? The thing is, it doesn't tell you the exact dates. And, the Tower of Babylon and Tower of Babel, I mean, yeah, it marks a date in time. Is it true the date that it even was? I'm not sure. Because we see some of these same things here. The Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. It's the 17th century, so 600-ish AD, and this is Museum Metropolitan of Art. Thank you for allowing me to use this. What do you see? Just giant building in a certain way and fashion, towers and columns, but then this is supposed to be the same place. So like when you look at artist renderings and renditions of places, this also burned. Can you tell me that this place really burned? That's all rock. It just burned to the ground and melted and just turned into dust. Like the only thing that can do that is frequency and like just incredible CMEs and frequency. If you understood the power of God itself, like how things construct with atoms. So these trumpets that they had, perhaps they put a frequency out that did the same thing. Not to the point that the previous stories were, they could get it down to atomical structure that would separate and reconnect into the veins down to the atomical structure, but perhaps on a very rudimentary form after that technology was lost with those long horns. Somebody, if you could tune those into the right frequency, perhaps those were mining devices that took those walls down. They did something similar, like you could crack stone instead of have to dynamite it or dig it like we did in the 1800s or do today. They were using frequency to separate rock. Not down to the atomical form, but there would still be like we do today. We dig up, there's some quartz, there's all kind of different, iron oxides and things connected to that, a little bit of fleck of gold, like all those are still attached together. But that's what that frequency of those horns could do to bring it down to that level. So they could crumble entire walls into dust. That plasma event's something very different. We're going to go to Inner Mongolia, Kara Koto. They call it the Black City. I don't know why. This is one that's lost in history that's not really talked about. And I'm like, that is a very large place. And the shadows all match up. So I was looking at those things, looking into photos, shadows match up. It's way too close to the river for my liking. I mean, you see that corner already. Whoever designed that did a poor job of reconstruction because look how that's already eroding onto the corner of that thing. Next big flood come downstream, that corner is off. Going to get flooded in. So here's what it looked like before they did all that wildlife reconstruction habitat to make it that pond come to the corner. So this is a disappeared relic in time as well. This is the more modern version of what you're seeing. This is probably 5-7 years before that when they first were opening this site up to tourists to come in. But notice it's mostly protected in sand, so there's not going to be a lot of erosion on it. But you look around here, almost all that sand's off the wall. You see, like, this one's the newest one. The sand still covers the walls. They haven't excavated and made it all pretty because even look at that corner there. You can see the erosion from wind. Obviously, it looks like wind erosion there, not water. But over there, that's all totally been resurfaced and totally flat. There's no way. This is a 1,000% reconstructed wall. And the designers, again, put it on the corner. That lake is not there in this one. Because that river would be pretty far. You have to, that's a decent amount of space to put between your building and a river is that and uphill. Because, man, I'm telling you, these floods, they're incredible these days. But this is what it looked like for those who would just say, hey, I hired a guide and take me out there for the day. It's not even open to the public. There's no ticket to get in. There's no fences around it. This is a archaeological site in Mongolia that was there. So this might be the next big place to look for stuff like this is in Mongolia. Seems to be everywhere. And also, I was talking to somebody about LiDAR, and I'd done a story on it. So these are the Mayan cities discovered with LiDAR. Every dot you see on there was a previously unknown city that had been discovered using that technology penetrating through the leaf canopy down. They all existed at one time, and for some reason, they all collapsed at the same time. A mark in time, as a matter of fact. But these are what some of the building foundations looked like. Like that was all under the canopy, so densely overgrown that nobody knew it was there until now, like just a couple of years back. Look at the pyramids; they're so easy to see. You can't see, like, look at the top of the pyramid too. So that's just a classic Mayan pyramid with that extra resonating tower on it, because it could be mistaken or replaced possibly with an obelisk, because there's a housing in there. It's kind of rounded with the stones. The finishing stones go to the top. It looks like an obelisk could have been plugged in there too. Just saying that would fit an obelisk at the top. And then what would you have? You would have resonating power going through your areas also that had obelisks that could pick that up, that frequency being transmitted across time and space. Like that technology had to have been used for 1,000 years after some of these disasters. Like some people still have to know about this technology and had to have. It's such a basic working part of the planet. It works on the electrical field. So, I mean, once you understand, here's a goodie. Like all these roads, you see those column ways going up? I'd hike down something like this going to a place called El Mirador back in 1999. And the guide was like, this guy named Beto. He was out of this town called Carmelita. If y'all going to go up there, there's a road there now. We had to walk up with mules for like 4 days to get into this place. Carmelita was an old grass airstrip, guy named Beto. And he was like, dude, we're going to walk up this causeway. And I was thinking, because I'd causeway, going, this thing was, man, forever, like hours and hours and hours. Walking is gradual. And then you could finally see where it stepped down. But leading up to that, you could see it rising little. And then you finally got to that point where you actually could see the sides of it. That's what this is. And all these things undiscovered in our rainforests. And there's the classical on the right side. The classical. I would wide the screen, but it breaks off on the right side. Could you not plug an obelisk into that far right one there? And it would not if these were others that had transmission capability. That's a circuit board. What you're looking at a circuit board. Plug your obelisks in, covered with a metallic substrate or metallic alloy foil of sorts. Plug one on the top of all of those and see what would happen there. Because what I see off to the left also looks like what we consider modern circuits. Now, maybe there were smaller ones there. In each of those holes, there was a small obelisk, not a large one. But still, same principles apply. If you cover those in a metallic alloy substrate foil or some sort of, cover those all up, like that entire place would glow in the sunset first. It'd be like a place of the gods. But what if that was a working electrical system? The combination of everything you see there covered in different types of alloy metals sheeting. What would that do? And then have transmission towers on them called obelisks. All carved in with patterns that would amplify the energies in different ways that they would move out from that. Just saying, there's a lot of things moving here. Okay, so Mexico City ruins 10 meters in depth, about 30 feet deep. Now, this is just outside Mexico City, not outside, just outside. So at about 30 feet deep when they were digging, the artifacts above is what they'd found. Similar to the Mayan, but not the same. Did you notice there's a huge rift? You'd think being right next door, everything would kind of be the same, but it's so very different. Think about our world. Is really 500 years enough to come up with completely different everything? Because the way we're told, go back 500 years, it's relatively the same. Well, if you're looking back in time here, it's completely different. Like the time periods of 1,000 years, 500 years, difference in time shouldn't be that different. 1,000 years ago in Europe it's going to be pretty the same moving through this to this time. We still use spoons. The artwork was kind of the same with the oil paintings. You still represented a face of a face. A horse looked like a horse. Carvings in stone look like the. But you go from insane, jumping off in a different dimensional realm, visitors off the Mayans into this. I don't know. It's like there's two periods of time we're there, and these are showing too. Now, those of you Tartaria fans, this is off a globe, and I go to like I say, a bunch of these old map websites. They also have these globes everywhere as well. So when you're looking at those, you can find these things like Tartaria everywhere across all the globes. So let me jump back on some comments here. Do you think we're really in? I don't know. I truly don't. I know we're now. But some of the information has to be truthful. At least multiple civilizations have left us these clues of all these timestamps of 2,000 years. So we had figured out there's a great year here. So 4 of those equals one ice age cycle. So somebody had known this, that those years need to be marked, absolutely, because they're great change themselves. Like the subset, 2,000 year period, great changes in that time too. But the combined total of that, either at a half a cycle, like some alarm clocks go off at 6 on the dial or 12 on the dial, depending morning or evening. They go off twice during an hour. Others don't, but then you could go the entire clock before it goes off once every 12 hours or once every day. You could have an alarm. So just showing us, doesn't matter where you are, time period for the last 8,000 years, they're always showing the same thing. We're coming into a cycle. We're coming into that cycle right now. That's the whole thing. Reason that everything is changing around the planet. We're at this cycle. We've entered into a new star sign, a new energetic flow. So of course, everything from the old is going to be destroyed as we build things for the new. Oh, let's see. Trump put copper on the special metal. Of course, they would put that on the special metals list. It's actually at record highs also. That's the thing. It's not just nickel's at record highs, or it was. I don't know if it's dropped off recently. Manganese, that was a record high. It dropped off a little bit, but every single metal just seems to be going a record high right now. What is it that this is my thing. If there's indeed a large civilization changing event coming in, continuity of government would say, all right, at the very last minute, like Noah pulling up the ark door, get all the metal off the planet. We need to get it underground in a refined form so we could make things to rebuild society after this event. I would do the same thing. I'd be like, I need every tool that can possibly be manufactured on the planet. I need 20 of those each, and send them downstairs. All of the raw metals on the planet that can be used for manufacturing, box them up, send them downstairs. Solar panels, those are already pre-conformed, perfect rectangles to box up and send them downstairs. Then we look at all the gold and silver happening right now. Yeah, that's where they're trying to get boxed up and sent downstairs, along with all the copper as well. So what's going on with all the metals coming? I really believe that we're right at the cusp of, so 2030 for me is a very significant date, thinking that they kept programming it into our minds like, hey, we told you before, 2030, man. Something huge is going to happen. We're distracting you with like lab-based meats and all this like global warming hype and agenda. We're distracting you with that. The weather changes are real. They're absolutely real. But it's because of the sun. It's not because of the things we told you for 50 years. Didn't want to spook you. Had to give you an excuse so you think you could do something about it. Stop drinking those damn plastic straws. That'll change everything. And Yakutia, Russia, record cold. Yeah, no, it was 55 degrees Celsius below zero. I was like, damn, that's. All right, so here's another one. Roman Empire used a fixed ratio of 12-1 for the gold to silver ratio for a very long period of time. And yeah, the coinage act 1792 used 15-1. In this transition that's occurring right now, everybody that I've watched, like really delved into these silver videos, because this is another play of allowing you to go debt-free in the future if you had some silver before. And this is just what I'm trying to figure out myself. Haven't made any plans yet, but it's not financial advice. I've watched probably like 30 videos since silver went over $80 in China. So yesterday, China was at 80 or over, and even before it was toying, it was still like $8 ahead of every silver. So I'm looking more at the Shanghai price than I am over here. Like they kind of got you distracted on this market in America's price. The real market in the world is over there. The thing is, they want to do that. They're pushing the price on purpose because they want to get everybody to loan airplanes full of silver and go over and get $8 extra. So you give me 100,000 ounces of silver, 100,000. You fly it over, I will give you 800,000 extra dollars just for bringing it. And soon, maybe it could be $10. I'll give you $1 million for bringing the 100,000 ounces over. Thank you. They're trying to get all the silver over there. But all these manufacturers need it too. Like the reason they're trying to get it over to Asia is all the manufacturers are there. So I'm trying to construct this idea, this picture. The manufacturing base is not in America. It's just not. It's not in South America. It is to an extent, but it's not like electronics, high-tech electronics. That's all over in Asia. All of the high-tech electronics need silver to produce their products. The AI data centers, which are being heavily rolled out across the planet in unison through all of those intertwining AI companies, right? They're the data center builders, implementers. They all need silver for that, and gold, and copper. The amount we need here in America is, I wouldn't say zilch, but man, like probably 95% less or more than they would need in Asia for manufacturing. On the monetary side, we need it more than anybody because it was trillions every day, kind of not daily, but trillions a month coming up on our debt here. We need the monetary metals to really keep our currency stable. Otherwise, we're going to run into something Weimar Republic-ish, choose your chapter of history. Because if silver goes to $1,000, it's not going to stop at 1,000. It'll probably run up higher. It's not going to touch 1,000. Once it breaks, people are going to like losing their minds. If it happens, just saying if it happens. Yeah, 350. That again, the reason I was saying that at 12 to 1. So if it's 66 to 1 right now, and it rolls back to 12 to 1, you're looking at a 4.5 on what the price is. So if it's $80, 8 times 4, 32, and then add another $20 on it or something. Yeah, $340. 350. That's perfect guess. There was more value in the upper peninsula of Michigan copper than the whole gold rush. Absolutely agree. And that would be the same with all around the Great Lakes, with the bauxite for the aluminum. Think about the iron ore deposits up there in like Green Bay and everything. Think about all of the minerals. Somehow all those minerals came in on top of there. Electric is the only way it could have possibly occurred. They try to feed you geology, and I get it. Geology is occurring. It's absolutely a piece of the part. Things are liquid underground. I get it. Things move. There's earthquakes. Plates are moving. Absolutely, I get that. But there was far larger event that overrode that normal process. And when I say that, I'm talking about such an electrical input over those Great Lakes that atoms had, I wouldn't say completely come apart, or we would have found perfect veins of that. But deconstructed to a point when it reassembled, it's just like base metal there mixed with a little bit of stuff. Huge base metal here mixed with a little bit of stuff. Gigantic pile here mixed with a little bit of stuff, but it's mainly all its own, element. Then the Great Lakes are there. So did they tell you it's glaciers? Was it electrical though? Did we have some sort of event that came down, discharged? All those areas sort of came molecularly destabilized in the crust like liquefaction. And after the electrical strike or charge was finished, it all resolidified. And it would have pulled stuff in from everywhere and we don't know how large the strike would have been. I mean, did it send electric currents coast to coast across 3,000 miles? We don't know. But imagine if it resolidified, whoosh, and you got that huge basin. Well, there might be some electrical punch, like they see up on Mars. Thunderbolt's a good one to look at that, where they get these tendrils coming down. Were those the tendril marks from that discharge? Those 7 lakes? Damn, if it was, think about how deep those lakes are and how big they are. How much electrical sculpting could have come out of rock everywhere across there too. Mayor of Centrala, Pennsylvania, started the landfill on fire to get rid of it. Started an underground coal seam on fire. Ah, man. Yeah, those, even though you think they're underground, it's just sometimes difficult to put things out. Luckily, we have better fire retardants and this sort of thing, but still filling an entire cave full of fire retardant to put it out or something, that's not, no. Nothing new under the sun. I was playing at the 1980 World's Fair. America's Pavilion big thing was touch screen monitors. 1980, do you say? Really? Okay. 75. Yeah, 70,000 view according to MonkeyWorks on YouTube for military looking down currently. I follow MonkeyWorks. I appreciate his work, man. I really do. Like, for me, I never knew there was really that available technology out there to track all that, but this dude does it as an art form and a science. Watch, flawless when he does it as well. Again, he's trying to go screen in screen. They don't need that. They use quartz crystals. They have been seen pulling electricity from power lines, though. Yeah, quartz. You can store data on quartz. Large enough quartz crystal, you could store, like 1 million years of data on it. All of human history, everything on everywhere, and everything you could possibly imagine. You could still put it in there and have like incredible amounts left over. If you're going to do that using DNA or using quartz are the two that you could go the most efficiently with. All right, so Tartaria, you can see that in the center there. I brought you another map. This one here is, let me see if I got the name on it. It was a Grand Tartary map. I think it was 17. Let me look at this one here. I'll have it. And I got a backup file. 1713, Le Grand Tartary Souvient, Les Nouveaux Observations. And I don't know why the writing's not on that one, but it shows you Tartaria there as well. And we're looking again at 1700s. My whole thing is, I'll zoom this in for you here. And I would ask you to go from left or west above the Mer Noire, the Black Sea, and the Mer Caspienne, right above that, Tartaria across there. The maps seem to change, and this is some of the last dates that you will find for these Tartaria switching maps. And what I mean by that is once you get into the middle 1700s, like 1750, these references to Tartaria just disappear. And for those of you purists out there, it's not, if you're going to go looking through these old map collections and everything, it's not Tartaria, it's Tartary. And you will find, like, you look in Tartaria maps, you might find a few. But the maps at that time weren't mainly written in English. It was mainly French explorers and these sort of things coming out. At this time period, during that time, the French were everywhere making maps. A lot of people spoke French and then traded these maps French. The Tatari, I-I-E, Tatari, just like it's spelled there. Put another E on it if you want to. Tatari, Tartaria. And, some of these river systems coming out of the Arctic Circle as well, just pretty interesting. Are these obelisks or what are you seeing here? A lot of this tech has been stripped off, but you notice the middle row, that a lot of that stuff's still there. Now think about those different colors as different minerals. Blue, the cobalt, the pink, the iron. And you start to look at some of these here, that brown one, jasper, or some sort of quartzite. And the very bottom right one definitely looks like a conductive area. There doesn't look anything on the vortice like we saw in the Tower of Babylon, but these look like just straight up power poles, power transmission stations with dual receiving antenna or quad receiving antenna, wherever you look there. Because this was 1640 Tartaria Magni Chami Imperium. So this one, if you look up at the top there, Oceanus Tartaricus, meaning the ocean of Tartaria. And they used to call it the Tartarian Ocean. Let me zoom that in for you. Maps below to take a look at what you want to see with that. And while you're looking at the map here, let me hit up, see, this global shortage of silver could stall, delay the markets to the point of total collapse of the agricultural cycles. No good weather, no season, no fertilizer. If anybody of these are missing, well, those are all dependent on farm financing anyway. Having my own small farm, knowing a ton of farmers around here, like that's one thing. If you're in a community, you just got to start meeting people who are producing food. You might not know them, like you go over to their house on Sunday dinner, but know who they are. The seeds are financed generally through like one of the top 3 seed companies. Most of the applicator and Roundup and these sort of weed control mechanisms, fungicides, herbicides, rodenticides, whatever it is, if you're going to kill bugs or if you're going to kill weeds or if you're going to kill rats, whatever one, that whole supply chain's all farm finance, because they put a ton of weed control, let's call it, down. It's an herbicide. It kills all the other things that it's not of that genetically manipulated bean in the ground. So soybeans, they tweak the gene of it not to be killed by Roundup, but every other weed gets killed by the Roundup. So they can go through and like run entire fields of this stuff, just dumping it in the air, and the drift is like half a mile on it. And there's no other weed in there because that soybean has been tweaked genetically not to die when the Roundup's applied to it. But everything else just disappears. And it's really not so helpful and not so healthy for our land. I just don't think it is. And the fertilizer and the fuels too. So you got the seeds, the fertilizers, all the application, and then you got the fuel that needs to be paid for also. Any maintenance on the tractors, that's all financed. Those farmers don't have cash for that. They finance it. They get it, and every bank will give them a loan because they know that they have land. And if they default, they can take their land and the equipment back. And if they have any equity in the equipment, they'll come and take the equipment back and be like, thanks for your free money. So as soon as they give the loans out to these farmers for like silos and tractors and different kind of dehydrators and conveyor belts and all these other things, and tilling and all these things, that the attachments that go with it, or a specific combine that comes through, once they get them into this loan, they'll loan any farmer equipment and money. Because if they don't pay it back, they come and take all the money that's been put into the equipment and possibly be able to take your farm. That's all financed, all of it. And at the end of the year, after they grow it, however much their tonnage they were able to pull out an acre, they sell it and then they pay back the bank, who will happily wait there for a 6-month turnaround or 8 months or something like this for their money to come back with interest. That's how our farming system works today. The farmers are paying interest on the money they're borrowing to be able to get all these loans to be able to grow the food, but then you're paying tax on that after the interest, and then everything just gets more expensive. If they don't pay it back, that's the big thing. The farm financing also is dependent upon a working market. So mark that on a thing. If some sort of silver contagion and gold contagion upsets or locks a market up, those farmers getting ready and pre-buying everything they need for the upcoming plant season are caught right in the middle, because it's general and they're getting everything ready for the plant season is like right now. Yeah, they got a lot more free time because they're not tending to everything, but they're still, looking at the equipment, getting everything in. So abundant mineral on earth, quartz. Yeah, right. So think about it itself. If quartz is a transmitter of, and a harnesser and a storer of knowledge, what if we had a quartz planet, and not only are we looking at the smallness of the obelisk and coupled obelisks to create circuit boards that connect with others and resonant antennas, think about the entire planet as a resonating antenna. Like, take it to that scale for a second. If quartz is such an abundant mineral in the crust, is somebody else using the earth as a transmitter? Because it's valid whether you go, if you're going small or if you're going wide. I mean, you look at these boards today and look at a radio crystal as well. Like if you're looking at a radio chip or something, damn, those quartz crystals are incredibly small. And was that the last of the images? I think it was. I'm going to try to see what my favorite might have been here. Yeah, I think I like this. What's going on with the people watching here? Go through some last comments. I think that's the last slide I had for you. I'm glad you joined me tonight. Thanks so much for this first ever live show. I'm going to start doing more of these live shows. Depends which day and which time. I sort of like this 9-10 o'clock. It's a holiday though. Not a lot of people are around, and I just had a moment to try to reflect back on and trying to get my videos and collections of slides ready to put in more deeper research versus just reporting on the weather news. Going to be deeper research moving forward. So I'm trying to collate and get my files kind of set up, and then get the old stuff off this onto a hard drive here. So I've been looking through a lot of these images, and I thought, they're pretty, telling across time that we've had the same knowledge just passed down to us in different forms that replicates the same understanding of time moving at 2,000 years at a time across a greater cycle. And then those subsequently, they had to have known the Ice Age cycle was just a coupling for the great years. So if you're going back millions of years in time on some of these ice cores, our Earth continually gets a little cooler, a little cooler. It's always locked in ice for 90,000 years. We're here at the 10,000 year period. If you knew, now sometimes the peer-reviewed research has showed that Ice Age is at onset as quickly as 10 to 15 years, like full onset, all the way up to 1,000 years. So what if you knew in the cycle, it wasn't always 1,000 years, it's not going to be a 10-year period. What if it's going to be like a 40-year, 50-year period? And now we're getting close to that point where it's going to be so noticeable that I wouldn't say Ice Age conditions, but deep grand solar minimum conditions are going to start now. And if those farmers don't have the financing to come out and plant, if there's no financing for them, there will be no food. But was there going to be no food because of the inclement weather? And then they can say, well, it was a bit of both. You global warming people, the weather's changing so much. We didn't grow as many crops. The economy wasn't working, so we couldn't finance the farmers this year. How much will your silver be worth, though? And can you even buy food? You know, there's a lot of stories about you're not going to be able to buy food. Even if you had gold or silver, you're going to throw it in the street and curse it, as I've heard it spoken in a couple biblical verses before. So even at that point, they're already talking about gold and silver. So the Bible itself already says there's some other cycle that goes within this gold and silver being used again and you know, breaking through the darkness. I think, you know, the battle of good and evil, like this evil conscience can't stay much longer. I think really, I intuitively feel using physical metals again is part of breaking this taboo, because if everybody is harnessing metals that allow you as a frequency harnesser or a frequency resonator yourself, when you hold these metals in your hands, to transmit out a little bit. Can you be as easily controlled if you're watching the nightly news with 2 silver rounds in your hands? Silver bullet for the werewolf. And there's a lot of stuff about silver and the way it can resonate or allow power to move through it. And as an electrical connector, it's incredible, but also as a heat conductor, incredible as well. Like the thermal conductivity of silver is just outrageous as well. So it's got a dual purpose, thermal and electrical both. So think about that. Companies need this for manufacturing. It's coming up to the point now where it's $1 a day. And I know some of you know Cliff High. I personally like the guy. I think he's got a lot of really quality information, especially how intuitive it was to use all the websites, crawl through like 300 million websites a day to get like a static average of the words people are using, and then crawl through it again like another week later and see what words had changed that people are normally using, and then crawl through a month later and see what had changed previously in the last 30 days, and then do it at 60 days and then 90-day runs or 6-month runs. Like what's the words people are using in everyday typing, chatting, changed over 6 months on 300 million websites. Write the code for that. That's what he did. But I do remember him talking and saying specifically, shout out Cliff, that silver was going to go $1 a day. And that was the beginning of the contagion, the beginning of the wake up for most people that, man, everything on the planet just seems it's off. Something's wrong. We're being totally taken advantage of, and there's just going to be a great awakening. In terms of people's just awareness of what's going on, it's going to get really weird enough where people are just going to stand back and go, I don't understand this. It's just too weird. During that time of the whole like human psyche perception of what is reality in front of them changes for like a huge amount of normal people, like the normie consciousness all just swings and opens at the same time. All the financial stuff's going to be going too. So those dual layers. And he was saying, when that begins to happen, when that starts, silver was going to go up $1 a day. And at some point, it's going to go up $2 a day. And then after that, it goes to $5 a day. And he was very clean. Don't sell it at that point. Just hold on. Because one day in the future, and very shortly, within a couple of weeks, when you wake up, it'll have gone up $100 in one day. Just passing the information along. And let's read off a couple more comments here, and then I'm going to take off. The orb flew a perfectly straight path like a laser light. So I put coordinates on Google Earth. Extended 60 miles away what were you looking for? Like quartz glinting in the sun or some sort of signal coming through that? Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi, shout out. What's going on down there? Are you seeing any coastal anomalies with more wind? Winds in different directions than they normally are. Before it used to be like a rare one, like it only sometimes came from there, but now it's coming from there, or it's like all over the place. On a coastal, would love to know that. All down in Florida too. Like, how are the winds changing down there? Because you got to know, people are starting to really sense, and those that are outdoors or involved in, really toying in on the weather. It's like they're very intuitive. Like, that's weird, that's strange, that's not normal, that's double, and that didn't happen very often. Like you really get into this knowing it. Yeah, of course, Cliff's still around. He yeah, he's updating sometimes. And I think I just went off. What did I get off of there? Oh well, I lost all the comments. Maybe I could turn it back on again for you. But anyway, you listening tonight, and wanted to run through the last comments here. Is Cliff still around? Yes, he is. Bought Bitcoin at 420. Was it 420? Were you puffing when he got the bot said to? Yeah. Cliff has to think outside the box ahead of his game. I thought his info was interesting. It is, because it's so widespread and so in depth that you're going to find something that resonates. Just take the messages or the pieces that resonate with you, and just, whatever, just take that. Discard the rest. But what works for you and what resonates with you, use that. Keep that. You heard one balloon. Did you hear four balloons? I'm right. I don't know how many balloons I shot. They're orbs, they're balloons. I'm not sure what it all was about. But anyway, I'm going to sign off here. Thank you for watching tonight. Hope you got something out of the video. Please share with your friends and family, and check out GLP-1 Elevate and Kelly Kettle, where a very small amount of wood can boil and purify your water. For any of you trekkers and hikers out there, I'll leave those links in the description box below. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something. Please flood the comment box with these different images, what you enjoyed, what you thought was good, bad, the ugly. It's all good. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.